Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Aprajita Rally, and I am the middle school coordinator at Pathway School, Noida. I've been teaching for the past 27 years, and I am heavy on technology integration. For me, it's a student's life, and that's how I center all my teaching and learning processes around, as I'm sure all of us do. Another thing that really has started mattering to me for the past 10, 12 years is how to integrate activities and engage students in a manner that they own their learning. And that is, the main task why I'm here today, to enable all of us to create help create opportunities for students so that we are strengthening their teaching learning processes, and also making them the action force that we need so much for the 20th 21st century. Of course, we are looking at developing the skills, and we are also looking at them driving their own teaching learning processes. But without teacher support, without the background, and without the framework that the teachers will provide, this is actually not possible, and we all know that. So, what I have intended around is to look at sustainable development goals and bringing them into our service learning, bringing them into our active teaching learning processes, so that it also gives the opportunity for teachers to, take through different areas of the the real world, bringing in the global context, and allowing them to think about the world in a way that everybody is at the same platform, to understand the inequalities and the inequities that are prevalent, and also having a voice in the development process of the world. Of course, across globally, we also have many projects which have been launched by absolutely enlightened educators, which are teacher enablers. Something like the SDG Ambassador Project, the online PBLs. Those are huge enablers for teachers. I found over the years, as I have investigated into my teaching learning processes, I have understood that the day I started with integration of the Sustainable Development Goals into my teaching, I was able to develop more robust planning, and my learning outcome was more measured, more achievable, and I think that's the aim for a teacher. Uh, the students in my class are more, I don't have to be on their heads to actually all the time be carrying my teaching learning process. They are more hands on, they are more driven and motivated. There are times that even in a classroom scenario, I'll tell them, okay, I'm stepping out for 5 minutes, and I do that on purpose. I might just go and stand outside the class, and I'll tell them, okay, you decide, you take your decisions, you tell me what you want to do. And when you come back, one is never, one never finds that your confidence is misplaced, because they've always held their ground, and they've always been true to the learning that you have imparted onto them. Often I have had teachers who wanted to know the why and the how of teaching of the SDG. So what I'm doing right now through this talk is to delve into that and looking at addressing basically five very significant questions, which is what are the SDG goals, and why do we need to look at them for the students? What does a sustainable world look like? Why is it in students' interest to know about the goals? How can teachers teach them, and what are some of the unique ways that they can be taught in? If we were to look at the most enthusiastic teachers, also sometimes struggle to sort of prioritize the goal in their daily day-to-day teaching practice, which means, and it takes a lot of extra work, because planning, looking at the outcome, making it appear that it's absolutely student driven, but you have the checkpoints, you have the exits, and you have a constant in touch with the student approach. So how can you include all of this in a regular subject classroom? And for the most important, what are the resources available for schools and teachers to do this. So I'm just going to be looking at these through one by one, and I'm hoping that by the end of it, I will be able to leave you all with quite resolved answers. So yeah, just jumping into it. So there have been different ways that I've been looking at the SDGs to enable the process, as I said. One, we look at creating SDG clubs in the school, and have students enlist and enroll for themselves for it. There is always a core team, and they decide on what the agenda will be, how they will be taking it through. So we divide it into the 17 groups, and the whole class gets engaged with that. That is one way of doing it. The other way that I did it was through an interdisciplinary approach. So what we did was we had a big idea, global context. Using that year we used fairness and development, and we said that okay, so choose any SDG which you think aligns you most to how you have decoded the global context, fairness and development. So that means that everybody in the world must get the equal share of resources. Now those resources could be in terms of education, could be in terms of food, could be in terms of women empowerment, could be in terms of sustainable living. It's up to you, and the choice was left to the student. So once the students decided their SDG, and then we told them to align that chosen SDG with the overarching global context with a certain subject. So the core subjects they had to choose from, and it could be anything that they took from English or individuals and societies or humanities section or the science section. And after that they had to plan their whole project and into creating a product. Now how that went was, that was a beautiful way of doing it. I'll share some PDFs with you, which was the outcome of the children, how they did that. So once I have aligned myself with an SDG, say women empowerment, and I am looking at the subject, the children took up INS and they took up English, which is two subjects. So the interdisciplinary approach comes there. We have the global context, fairness and development. We are looking at women empowerment. So the four things are sorted here. Now, keeping this in mind, we are looking at identifying the issues that are existing in the society. It could be globally, and it could be focused on a community issue which they are seeing around their own scenario, how they are surviving. So that brings in the service element also for them. And once that all is fixed, the teacher is monitoring them right through. Okay, let's do this, let's fix this, let's know this is create a research question around it. Or you might not want to get into such details, you might not have that kind of time. So all those things deliberations go on with. Post that, once that is fixed, they've identified even the issue that they want to work on, they start looking at the government policies that are existing. That brings in the INS element of the governance and how the politics are run, or how the policies are made, how laws are passed, how it has been, the historical perspective, and all so on and so forth. And that is their disciplinary grounding. Then the student goes on to look at the other aspects of how they can themselves suggest change. And the suggestion of change is their research, is their investigation, is their communication. They are also writing campaigns. They are talking about getting in touch with government authorities, trying to find out what is actually happening on ground, bringing comparative studies between one country and the other. And so looking at again the poetic devices or the literary devices of English. And so that is the second disciplinary grounding. And having done that, then they look at suggestive policies, wherein they feel that, okay, there are loopholes here, let's look at how we can resolve the issue. That resolution comes through the outer core subjects, their portfolio subjects, which is probably the design or digital design or music or drama or art, which is their creative expression. So that is the product that they are talking of. So this is a very, very encompassing unit, and it took them about 8 months. We assigned them one lesson every alternate week, and some of them worked in groups, some of them work individually. They made presentations, they had their action plans, they had their research orientation, they used primary, secondary resources. So it was a beautiful project by the end of it, and when we all together as a group reflected, the students and us, we found it very comprehensive, and we showcased it in front of an audience. We had a shared experience with the school community and the parents of the students. So it was a complete project based learning approach through the interdisciplinary aspect, of course keeping in mind the SDGs. So that went very well again with the school, and that was a huge enabler for teachers also, because we could sort of under the umbrella wind up a lot of subjects that we put in, and plus let the students drive it. So we could take a back seat and see how it is going, which normally if we are taking the fourth runner's role in a classroom scenario, we're not able to do that. So that really went well. I'll be putting up the images and certain videos for this for you all to have a look at. Another approach that worked fantastically well was, letting students lead through the SDGs was through the CAS programs that they enlisted themselves in. So whether it was at grade 9 or it was at grade 8, also for their community project, we had the students brainstorming their own work, and as a whole class, first they brainstormed what general topics and what general areas that the community needed. So they talked about hunger, they talked about homelessness, they talked about animals, they talked about underprivileged children. And once the ideas were generated from the students, then the students sort of enlisted themselves and volunteered to work on these different mini projects. What started off as a mini project, and there were children working in different areas of their own interest. So we landed up doing excellent amount of work through service learning projects. So this carried on for about 8-9 months, and again students were allotted school time, a period of 40 minutes every alternate week with supervisors, but supervisors were just there to look at the disciplining, look at the infrastructure, providing them with the wherewithal, but everything else was student driven. So even if they had to contact a resource person, or if they had to look at the agency or the NGO, or if any agency or NGO actually rejected them, all of that was the students self-learning. There were times that they were not allowed to use the phones in the classroom, obviously not, so they had to go down, take permission from the principal first to use the phone in the office, then call up the NGO. It was wrong timing that they called up the NGO, and so that whole resilience building came through also from that. And what was so beautiful for an educator to see there was how you were letting them evolve into grown individuals while they are sending out proposals to the principals, to the agencies outside, to the partnering NGOs, or even if they wanted to fundraise. There were students who were writing to the MDs of Nestle Maggie to donate some Maggie's packets so that they could have the sale and have the fund risen from there. It was a huge responsibility that the students were able to take on themselves, and teachers that they were able to reflect and plan on the next stage very unobtrusively. So they were basically invisible, and the children were absolutely moving on in their own directions. So again, very enabling. We had children working for the underprivileged group. We had children working for the blind. So for the blind, they created braille and lessons. They created audio lessons. For the hearing impaired, children first learned the sign language, and they created very beautiful presentations for them. just to see and just to learn from there with the sign languages. There were children, a group of children used to actually go and paint the walls of the school, and excellent work children have done there. Plus, for the underprivileged children, we had a group of children. Again, they volunteered and the school supported, of course. They went and they trained these children into good touch, bad touch. So they had workshops for girls and boys, and all driven by the children themselves. What used to happen was they used to make these presentations, share them with us, and if we okayed the quality of it, then they went ahead and presented it. That was another group. Then there was a group which was working for the animal shelter. They had adopted an animal shelter. They raised about 38,000 at one time. And the other time they raised my medicines worth 54,000. So, and this is all done by grade 9 children. So there weren't any boundaries that they knew. We had enabled them in so many ways. They were able to explore and engage with so many issues that probably they didn't even know existed. There was this whole idea of entrepreneurship that came out, where children were creating their own bookmarks and selling them, and then made money to donate to the agency that they were working for. So fantastic projects came out from there also. There was one time that they worked with the Tapovan, the environment protection group, and they created around Earth Day. They created posters, they created videos, they created Twitter accounts. There is another group which is working with the women empowerment. They are, they've been approached by so many agencies to come and share their experiences. There is one group which is working for which is talking about creating awareness about the periods which the women have, and how there is a taboo in our country or in many countries wherein people are not talking about it, or how people are dealing, or women are dealing with those. So those again became very, very comprehensive projects, and way beyond the teacher's purview. There were times that we were prepared with what children were coming up with. Many a times we also had to step out of our comfort zones and relook and rethink at how we were looking at the situation on ground, and what would we do if these kind of things came up to us. Children were working as entrepreneurs or as interns with agencies and NGOs. Right through the lockdown, I've had children working through it all, and these were all again because they had the knowledge of the SDGs, so they knew where exactly their focus areas are. So it was very interesting to see that the subjects taught in class actually triggered off the positive vibes for the children. Looking at these various subjects, if you look at the resources that we have, if you look at the social interactions, if you look at the environmental procedures that we want to look at, so this is all that is available for every SDG. If you see, there are subject related questions. So let's say for zero hunger, we have what is the difference in the average daily calorie intake in 3 different countries. So herein you can even look at the LEDCs, MEDCs, how are people consuming, what is the consumption because of the deficiency of certain things, what are the kind of diseases, and what is the government doing about it. So many aspects can get related to this. Looking at again, let's say if you're looking at the responsible consumption and production. For maths, how long is the life cycle of different food and household products you use daily? So statistical data, survey, all the analysis, all of that will get brought in. And again, a social aspect can also be brought in, looking at then the richer class or the poor class or the women or the children who are fed better, and the girl child, the angle of the female feticide, infanticide, all of those can also get addressed through maths and a social science topic with the overarching idea of the SDG. Looking at quality education and a direct connection with language, has education changed since the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution is a focus to the history aspect immediately, and of course bringing it up to the current times when we are looking at the digital divide that we keep talking about in the current scenario with the pandemic looming large on our head. If we are to look at the categorization of the environmental factors in which the SDG has been divided. So, if we look at the climate action, and I'm looking at the maths thing, what is the carbon footprint of transport energy of your household? Very specific, very data driven, very pitched in maths, but again can be related to a science topic, can be related to a geography topic, and the student can look at different inquiry lines on which he or she wants to take the project towards. So the entry point may be where the teacher is taking them, or a subject teacher is a certain subject teacher is driving them through. But the other explorations that the children want to engage with, that can be left up to the children, and also it can be totally student driven one. Also it can be exploratory, it can be collaborative. There are so many skills that one can develop through this process of understanding. Children can go and find out information from primary sources, secondary sources. So the reading skills, writing skills, there is a whole spectrum, a wide spectrum of things that you're going to be exposing your children to. And all the teacher has to provide is that well planned trigger. We cannot take away the nodal point or the agency of the teacher mind here. The focus, the lens through which you want to take the lesson has to be very clear in your head, and which is where your departmental meetings, your collaborative meetings, your interdepartmental meetings are very, very relevant. And of course, we all know the value of those already. So looking at the environmental aspect, I am going to look at the language again, or we can look at science here. What causes a coral reef to die, and what are the impacts? In specific, let the student explore. So this is the big idea. In specific, let the student explore a case study, and that would provide for the geography aspect. So if you see here, there are basically the SDGs are divided into the subtopics of only the core subjects. The other subjects the student will be or should be driven to take on their own. So it is up to you how you drive that. So under the partnership for the goals, this is something that gets a little tricky for all teachers and all subject teachers to drive through, because it comes naturally for an English teacher to look at the partnership or look at the goals, look at the UN role of the UN, role of the different agencies, different non-government agencies, looking at leadership roles and their partnerships. So a social science teacher or an English teacher is easily, or a political science teacher, social science teacher is easily driving it. But for a maths teacher, this gets a little difficult, as my experience goes. So if you were to see it from the lens of economics and then put it under the maths head, it brings in a structure to your process of planning. So this is how the SDG guide looks, and this is just a suggestive, of course. As I was telling you, that we also have started off a SDG club, and this is essentially for the middle school students, 6 to 8, wherein I took the students through understanding what the SDG is all about, telling them if they were to be part of this group and how it is relevant to their daily lives, what are they going to get out of it, and taking them through the various resources, telling them how they will be able to have their say in the world, sharing the best exemplars. And so this is what I have proposed to the school, and this is a week by week scheduling that I have done. So children again, identify issues, they reflect on what is happening in their society, of course starting at the global level, and looking at various ways in which these issues that they have identified can be resolved. Now, the whole process is given here, and it is up to the students to make those connections and sharing with their school community or their parent community. Sharing with you right now is a wakelet and a PDF format of that wakelet, wherein my grade 9 students that I had shared who worked under different projects. So they were given the choice, and they were given spaces to create their work sections. They have created this Twitter account. As you can see, there is a lot of footfall, and there is a lot of interaction that the children have had with many adults and with NGOs, with also the UN agencies. So it has been quite a learning experience for this particular group. This is the women empowerment group, and as you can see that they have many followers. They even conducted a Twitter chat of their own. uh, then the next thing that you're seeing is the animal shelter group. Again, these children have been looking at working with NGOs. They've created their own Insta account, and everything driven through the SDG, as you can see. The next group that you're seeing is a visit to the Child Welfare Institute, wherein children who were underprivileged have been kept, and our children were their joy forebearers, or bringing them joy, have been. And yeah, so we are also looking at how students have looked at managing their own time. They are looking at organizing themselves. They are also looking at opting out for what they want and realizing that this is not working for them, so taking a 180-degree u-turn and changing a project or revamping it all. And all of this is done only through a teacher, through a mail. A teacher is there in, as I said, the invisible capacity, literally. So all of this is work shared by our children, and we have shared them at different platforms with parents within their communities, societies, our school community, on the YouTube, on Twitter. It has been quite an experience for all of them put together. This, if you see, this is the video. This is a image of the school wherein our students used to go and train the children for the good touch and the bad touch workshops they used to hold. And they realized that they did not have, in the name of technology, they did not have too much, so these people bought them the school projector also. And this is the social media outreach that you see for this. This is all grade 9 in 1 year, the work that has been done by them. Last kind of work that I the type of work, as I was saying, that I do with my kids is to just look at projects that I engage with them. As I said, that there are many already very enlightened educators like Jennifer Williams, who is already into the field of looking at the sustainable development goals for education. So every year, twice a year, I enlist my students or my class for this project, and it normally aligns with my geography unit, which is where are people living, or how do the people impact the environment that they live in. And so they worked on critical issues such as the climate change, biodiversity, and they are looking at sustainable consumptions. And therefore we don't design anything. I do not have to get into the planning, but it's a already prepared template which is provided to me. I just have to continue with my teaching in class, and give some, maybe once a week I do sit with the kids, with the group, and ask them how their project is going. So they are getting into explorations in the physical space, also at home, talking to people around them, looking at how their own environment is getting impacted by the way by their own actions. So starting small, but it eventually becomes a big project because they exchange their findings with schools across globally, and they also through the issues that they understand, they also expect to resolve those problems. So the suggestive changes that they bring out after understanding the big global issues, is something which is very very stimulating, and it promotes as is, as of course we all know, the core competencies, and it fulfills my role as a teacher for them. Thank you so much for being such patient listeners. I wish I could be there, in the workshop, and discuss all of this around, but due to certain compulsions, I've not been able to do that this year. But I've always enjoyed, being there for the Tech Fest held by CIS, and I look forward to many more interactions in the future. Thank you, Shefali. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. And everybody, I am at Twitter at Upra Rally. Please do reach out and let's continue the discussion because learning must go on. Thank you.